It's wonderful to see everybody. I'll just open us with a cookie. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonu. Ki ngā kina ki uta. Ki ngā taratara ki tāna. I hi ake ana te atakura. Ki trio, ki huka, ki hopu. Te hei mai runa. Cease the winds from the west. Cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land. Let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with sharp and deep, a touch of frost and a promise of a glorious day. Okay, there are no apologies for today, so it's great to see everybody. Now today we're joined in public forum by some special guests that I did ask to actually make this presentation to us. Councillor John, you'll be familiar with us through Te Apere Governance Group, so it's welcome to Keith Joblin, Vince Neal and our Tom Shannon. We're going to talk about the UNESCO Geopark, but also some of the very unique geology of the Tararua district and what makes that so special and significant. And I know that some years ago there were some scientists here studying with the storm talk that party into a skull and actually took them out to some very significant sites with earthquakes. So keen to hear that presentation. Now it's a little bit more challenging in the chamber here, but if you want to come forward to the front and we can either, if you want to come to chairs, Tom,
yeah, no, I'm in support.
Okay, you're a supporter. Wonderful, nice to have you, Tom. So, rather than Tom Shannon, did you want to go?
Well, I'll follow up.
Okay. Next one. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we.
You know. Would you like
Thank you. Melinda. Thank you, Tracy, for allowing us to come along here. Vince and I are going to go through a brief exposition and tell you exactly what a UNESCO Geopark is and how it relates to Tararua in particular, and get some feedback. So perhaps at the end we'll take questions, but we'll just try and move through this quickly. I need to change the.
Yeah, I'll just put
If I just hit the. Thank you. So, I guess everyone asks, what is a geological park? What's UNESCO got to do with this, and how does it fit into what we're doing? So when you think of geopark, you might get a bit frightened and think of national parks or reserves and all sorts of problems with land ownership and access, etc. But the UNESCO geoparks are different sort of beast. They're virtual parks in the sense that they don't actually own land or whatever. And I just put up some points here which we've had questions on in the past.
Yeah.
Basically relating to that, there'll be places which might go on someone's land, and then we'd need to get permission to get access to that, etc., etc. So it's a 10-year process that we're looking at the moment. But this can be managed in a virtual way and with agreement of everybody. UNESCO does not have any management authority over areas involved, and you can carry out whatever economic activity. So it's basically a picture on a map with geological sites of interest and visitor destinations. So the plan we've got is based around Te Apere Manawatu Gorge, but it's actually far more extensive than that. So, but that's our major feature that we're looking at. So what is the plan that we're working through? Basically consists of a series of geological sites or features of interest, which would be visitor destinations, and we can combine those with either geo trails or other features, so that it all becomes a a way of managing people and saying, this is what we've got to offer. This is something special. The plan that we have involves several years of actually getting these geosites up and running, and that's our focus currently. Then we need to focus on going to a functional geopark, which involves governance, maps, all the bits that go with that, and that has to be operational. And then you can apply to UNESCO to get a particular tick status, basically the gold standard for these parks, and that's the second phase. But the first phase is establishing a regional geopark. We've been working on this for some time and making very good progress in the last couple of years. But it started out with a discussion over a whole range of individuals from MPs and councillors in different areas to see, is there any interest in this, can we achieve it? And there's a very positive feedback from everybody. Everyone would like this. The next step was to make a submission to UNESCO, the Joint Commission of UNESCO. And so we made an expression of interest based on a geopark around the Manawatu River catchment. They replied and they said, well, but they thought that we'd have more chance of getting through the UNESCO criteria if we just focused on the gorge as a major feature. But I must admit that subsequently we're working back and thinking, well, we need to perhaps enlarge our horizons through parts of Tararua, Manawatu District and Manawatu to do this. And then we set up a steering group of some experts. And today we have Vince Neal here, who's Emeritus Professor of Earth Sciences from Massey University, certainly the expert geologist on the local area. So Vince will be talking in a minute. John Proctor, who many of you may know. Tom, in the background, as a very knowledgeable local entity, and myself. And we're actually trying to expand the steering group at the moment into getting a more diverse range of people and perhaps quite younger people. So Vince is going to come forward and take all the expert questions here. This is the geology, and that's the crux of the geopark.
Okay, well, Keith talked about the UNESCO part of a geopark, and so one of their criteria is that the sites have to be of international significance. They should be in a sort of single unified area, and you can have a completely holistic management of a geopark so that matters of cultural importance, matters to do with natural heritage, all these sorts of things can be included in a geopark besides the actual geological features. And so I thought I'd begin by just showing you a couple of pictures from a real geopark. And this is one I visited in Ireland. It's a place called the Burren, out on the western coastline of Ireland. And as you see here, it's pretty barren in the Burren. And there are these great slabs of limestone, which might not seem to you to be particularly attractive. But the Irish have a name for these cracks that run through the limestone here, which are called grikes. And within these grikes is a flora which is unmatched anywhere else in Europe. They find here flowering plants which also only grow in Iceland. There are other flowering plants that only grow in the Mediterranean, and this is the only place in the world where they all grow together at the same place. And obviously these little grikes are quite warm compared with the surrounding landscape. And so this became one of the Irish geoparks, coupled with some spectacular coastal scenery. And that's interesting. Oh yeah, it has come up. And these are something called the Cliffs of Moher. which are famous not only for their scenery, but also for where the puffins nest. There are then archaeologically significant sites. So hopefully, okay, we've just got a little delay here. Probably going to Palmerston North and back. And so these are Neolithic tombs, for example, that are thousands of years old, which ancients obviously established in slabs of limestone, and which the public can visit. And there's appropriate signage explaining what they found at all these sites. And then there's more sort of like medieval history, such as these monk towers, which occur around the place, where the entrance to these towers is about 20 feet above the ground level, because when the Vikings and others arrived, they just went up ladders and pulled the ladders up inside with them to protect themselves. So you can see there's a huge variety of other interesting places for, say, tourists to come and visit. What impressed me most was that when you went to this area, it didn't matter whether you went into a dairy or a petrol station or a pub, they had these wads of maps showing the geopark. And so this is a copy of one of the maps. And you can see that part of it is a national park, the Burren National Park. Here's the Cliffs of Moher, marked by the red arrow. You have to have a centre for a geopark, like a visitor centre. But there's a huge array of other cultural features that are in this area and which they promote to tourists to come and visit. We have recently had the first geopark created in New Zealand called the Waitaki Whitestone Geopark, based around Oamaru. And we knew it was in the making some years ago. What surprised us was that Keith mentioned how UNESCO had told us not to take in the whole of the Manawatu catchment, but just to sort of concentrate on the gorge area and its surrounds. But in fact, when they got the geopark approved in the Waitaki, they went all the way from the coast to the summit of Mount Cook. So they took in the whole catchment there, and it seemed to work. Again, you can see this is the map, and this is a more detailed part of the southern part, that you may be able to see some of the features which are figured in these publicity pamphlets. Now, the key requirements for a UNESCO geopark, as Keith said, is first of all, you have to establish a geopark, and then you can apply to get UNESCO status. And these are all the matters which are part of the application process. So I'm just going to deal with the top two to begin with: geological significance and geodiversity. Do we meet the criteria? Well, I believe we do. And one of the principal reasons is that we're in the centre of a part of New Zealand which is rather unique. It's different to the South Island because here we have the plate boundary between the Australian and the Pacific plates, and it's under the North Island that the Pacific plate is diving down underneath the Australian plate. And so if I just show you this 3D diagram, here we have the situation with, these are the main axial ranges. I won't go into the volcanic arc, which is then behind the axial ranges and to the north of us in the Taupo Rotorua zone. But here we are where the two plates are in contact with each other before they diverge somewhere around Woodville. And so we have all this crumpling associated with these earth movements of the Pacific plate coming in and descending and causing all this mayhem in the Australian leading edge of the plate. And that's responsible, of course, for a lot of the faulting and the earthquakes that we experience through this region. But it also means we do have some features of international significance in this area. And one of them that I will draw your attention to is that when you look at the faulting in the North Island, probably the most active fault is in fact the Wellington Fault, which runs up through the Tararua Ranges just south of the Manawatu Gorge, it forks into two, and the western branch is called the Ruahine Fault, the western branch Mohaka Fault, but it eventually comes out at the coast of Wakatani. And so this is the major fault line of the North Island, which is running right through the district and with proximity to the Manawatu Gorge. So one of the features of a geopark here is what we call the neotectonics. That is the tectonics, the movement of the Earth's plates that's going on now and under our feet all the time. A very simplified geological map of the region shows, and this is where I want to keep the geology really simple, the blue colours represent the very old rocks and the lighter colours represent the very young rocks. And we have a story here which is quite intriguing. The Wellington Mohaka Fault actually demarcates a completely different geological history on this side of the fault. So the minute you drive into the entrance of the gorge to go over the Balanced Bridge, you cross the boundary between the East Coast Basin, which has an entirely different geological history, to the Wanganui Basin further to the west. Now, that becomes relevant to us at several places. But beginning in the north and perhaps working south through the Tararua district, one of the amazing features is just off Topgrass Road. It's on private property, and so you do have to walk about 500 metres in. But here is the Wellington Fault running along the eastern edge of the southern Ruahine Range, and is represented by this line running through here. And what you can see, for example, is this is a ridge coming down off the Ruahines, and the spur at the end of it has been offset horizontally, then blocking the drainage in this particular catchment. And so this side is moving south, whilst that side's moving north. And where we've got the white arrow is where we've drilled drill holes and studied the fossil pollen and so on. But we have a radiocarbon date at a depth of nearly 4 meters, giving us an age of about 1750 years before present. And the significance of that is that this ridge has got to come a significant way across the valley before the peat will accumulate in front of it. And therefore we can calculate from this that the horizontal offset along the fault to the west of Dannyburg is in the order of between 4 or 5 up to perhaps 14 millimeters per year as the rate of offset. Now that doesn't mean every year it moves that amount, but every 100 or 200 years it will move in an earthquake a couple of meters each time. But that's the average rate of horizontal offset. The vertical offset is considerably lower than that. Other features that we have in the region that are already sort of taken for granted, I guess, is we have the Coppermine Creek with some very nice dock signage that this would require nothing additional to what's already exposed there. I just popped this one in because this is the other sign at the car park at Coppermine Creek. But here's an example of the rock that's in the Massey rock collection of some of the copper, the malachite that came from the Maharahara copper mines up there. So that's a site of geological interest that the public can already reach readily. And right nearby are other features, all probably related to the major faulting here. One being that Coppermine Creek comes down and joins the Manga Atua stream at the area generally known as Maharahara. But we can see how very recently there's been a complete river capture taking place here. And Coppermine stream once used to flow down in this direction, down what is Pinfold Road, and the Manga Atua has captured the headwaters of the Coppermine stream to take those waters out in a different direction around Woodville. And so this is now literally a dry valley with a very small stream that heads all the way down to Woodville. So there are examples of river capture due to the local active tectonics. Other features in the region that we perhaps take for granted, when you go over the Saddle Road, we have in the saddle a whole lot of younger strata that have only been deposited under the ocean in the last 2.5 million years. So this is all ocean 2.5 million years ago, okay? And with the subsequent uplift, these strata have been eroded off the older blue greywackies. And here at Warrity, we actually see the evidence of an old surface that we think was pretty planar, pretty horizontal, which was eroded across the greywackies in the order of 50 to 100 million years ago. And it has been deformed into this sort of dome shape at Warrity. Further north, it's dead flat. When you look out from Danbury to the west, you see the level top of the ranges there, and that's the same surface along the Delaware Ridge. And so we can see the modern tectonics deforming this very old erosion surface. And we don't see it here because the younger strata in the foreground area, it's down underneath. Coming down close to the Manawatu Gorge, following the Mohaka-Wellington Fault, I've got 3 white arrows on this black and white aerial photo. This one is from a section on the Ag Research Ballantrae property. This is from the creek on the other side of the road, opposite. And I mentioned Barney's Point in the gorge. But the main issue here, and I realise you won't see all the detail in this, but I just want to point out, is that up on the high terrace at Ballantrae, they put in a new road cutting a few years ago, and here were logs of wood sitting in the gravels, and these were dated around 12.5 to 13,000 years ago. Then on the downthrown side of the fault, we have logs of wood which are 10,000 years old, so 13,000 years has got to be lower than this, and this gives us the rate of vertical offset along the Wellington Fault, which we can calculate to be about 1 millimetre per year. Now, at Barney's Point in the gorge, we actually find logs of wood which are dated around 13,500 years ago, right up at the old former road level, and therefore we can see that the rate of uplift on the fault line is equal to the rate of downcutting of the river, so our tectonics are equaling the river incision forming the Manawatu Gorge. I don't have time to go, and here's Barney's Point coming up, for those of you that don't know it. There was a parking area just here on the corner, the sharp turn in the gorge from the Woodville end. I will just mention that if you're at all interested, I've written up a much more detailed account of the origin of the Manawatu Gorge in this one of the chapters in this book, Planet Science. Moving on, and this is from that particular chapter, just showing you the uplift of the land governing this whole situation. This map shows the first land to come out of the ocean in the southern North Island as recently as about 20 million years ago, was down around Cape Palliser in the Aorangi or Haurangi Range, the Waiwapa Range out here to the east, and just around Eketahuna, in fact. And then we see land starting to be uplifted up near Waihuru. Probably the ancestral Tararuas are coming up, but not Ruahinis. Come up to this diagram, and around about 2.5 million years ago, then the Ruahinis start to come up. And you can see the southern part of the North Island was a series of islands, like the Tararuas and the eastern coastal ranges. And finally, this seaway from the Wairarapa through the Tararua district and into Hawke's Bay gets cut off. And the one exit point is through where the Manawatu Gorge is now. And that's what led to the river cutting through in that direction, succinctly. A geosite of significance is at the eastern end of the gorge because, and this is when they were removing the railway tunnels, so historical now. But the slab of limestone here has fossils within it that we know are 2.5 million years old. And so quite clearly this was a shallow water deposit long before the gorge was ever, or the land was uplifted and the gorge was able to form. So the gorge is a very recent feature compared with some of the gorges in the world where we know the rivers cut through the main range to the other side. On the new road, one of the spectacular features is this massive conglomerate, which you'll see on the western side when you're coming up or going down the hill there. And Waka Kotahi are installing a series of signs which we hope will become part of the geopark principle. And so there'll be at least 4 or 6 geological features along the road which they are producing signage for. But to just make the point, where this conglomerate occurs, which is on the road going up the hill here, it clearly demonstrates that they have shells in them, so that clearly this was a marine environment between 2 and 1 million years ago. So this must be the old shoreline, say about 1 million years ago, and the Manawatu River was pouring all these gravels into this embayment that I've just called Tiapiti Bay. And this is the offshore equivalent that's preserved here. Because of erosion, we've lost the deposits that were between the old mouth of the river and its offshore delta. And subsequently, of course, uplift of the Hopelands High diverted the Manawatu River around the other side, and then it came south of the gorge to meet with the Mangatinoka and then swing northwards to come through the gorge. And I could go on about that, but I'd better be brief. Just to point out that there are other features in the Tararua district that we can include. And of course, we've got the 2 major waterfalls that are out to the east at the Waihi and at Mangatiti. And again, at Waihi, we would hardly have to do anything because it's already got public access, it's got the signage, and it just can be part of the geopark. And lastly, since here we are in Pahiatua, couldn't resist putting this one in, which is another river capture that occurred only about 18 to 20,000 years ago, we think. And that is the upper reaches of the Mangahao River in the Tararuas once came out of the range and flowed eastwards into what is now Hukanui Stream and then fed the Mangatinoka. And only about 18,000 years ago did the Mangahao cut down and capture the headwaters into its channel now. And that's why we've got this broad plain from Pahiatua going south, because there was a much bigger river flowing through here prior to 20,000 years ago than we have today. And clearly, all that water's now in the Mangahao. So I'm now going to pass back to Keith, who will discuss with you the rest of the story. I think we've got about half a dozen slides here.
This is the important bit as well as the geology and the culture. The important bit is the money side of it. So this is just a. So how are we going to make this happen, and how much is it going to cost? Because of the series of geosites, which I have to say is still in formation. You know, we know lots of stuff, but we're learning new things. And so each geosite will require these features. You know, we need to have obviously good signage, safe access, and safety is a major factor, which will require a road or a path, cars or vehicles, parking, and river-wide maps. So those are the sort of the basic features. In the strategy with all this, and you know, it's like creating something while it's moving. So it's this is what we will do. start with the easy ones. In other words, the geo sites which have the most features and are most likely to have an impact on visitors. We need to start access with landowners in case the situations where there's landowners involved. Build a network of the best geo sites, and particularly ones which have a lot of people nearby for ease of access. And ones we're thinking here are listed as Edwardsvik Park and Palmerston North is already established, Ashurst Domain, and the new roadway coming over. And there'll be ones in Tararua as well, which Vince has mentioned. We need to assess them and report on them, how much, and site maintenance. We were lucky, we went to Palmerston North City Council Parks Planner Jason Pilkington, and he helped us out and went through the latest numbers that they have and they use in their park features at the moment. And this lists the sort of things and the cost. This is over a 10-year plan for the whole of the virtual geopark. So you can see dollar sums for signage, parking, access, fencing and agreements, and creating a website. And there's a very liberal inclusion here of a contingency fund and project management. And that comes to a total of $541,000. However, we've been working in the last few years and getting lots of support. So we're getting some signage up where we've given the content, Vince and his colleagues given content for the signage, but that's projected. And so that's about 48K. And if we take that off, the shortfall we have is about $500,000. 10 years. So even that out, you get some money. But just to give you an idea of where Tararua is involved in this, you guys see it's pretty important in our geopark. At the moment, we can recognise what we see as 8 significant geosites, but I'm sure there will actually be more if we work for this. Indeed, you may know this from your own local knowledge. You can tell us things that we need to know. DOC 3 sites, Manawatu District Council 5, Palmerston North City Council 4, and on the new road, Mokotahi at 6. So that's the geosites we're featuring. Now, process will be, as I said, heading towards a regional geopark before we get involved in the UNESCO step. And if you did a bit of simple maths, 500,000 over 10 years, that's 50,000 per year. And if we split that among some of the, put here sort of the DOC, PNCC, Tararua and Manawatu councils, it requires something like about $11,000 to $12,000 per year. So that's what we're submitting to you, is if you could help us out with a contribution along those lines, we can get more traction. So look, thank you for giving up your time. I know you're awfully busy, but appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks very much, Dave. It is incredibly fascinating, and you can tell just by the deep size of the interest that's there every time we learn about this. And you'll often hear in some of our conversations, especially around the Saddle Road, you would have heard me refer to young geology and some of the risk and challenge that has. So this will obviously form part of an annual plan conversation, but I think as we're in the early stages of that, it's been fantastic for everybody to hear that whole story and vision that we do have. There is one other UNESCO geopark close, and that is Morganville City of Design. It's a UNESCO City of Design, so that's something that they've worked on and leveraged themselves off as well. So I certainly thank you and the rest of the team for the incredible amount of work that has been put into this and for sharing it. Those of us that went on the last trip over Tararua will recall seeing the shells in the side. So we'll go back up there again, very, very visible there. And also at Marina Domain. There's a lot of shells in there as well. So thank you very, very much for that. If there is one burning question, we'll take one, but Councillor Wards.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fantastic presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much for that. I know it's early days, but has there been any indication, perhaps from some of those other examples you shared with us, Neil, around the economic impact in terms of tourism and, I mean, to be able to justify that expenditure? Has there been any analysis done as potentially what that could?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a gorge governance group of which Tracy's a member and Peter's on. They contracted a consultant, Stafford Consulting, to go through and prioritise some of the projects in terms of, and they assessed potential economic income and outcomes and all the things that consultants do. I don't know. And they rated us number 2 out of all of this as being important.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
We can get a copy. I don't have enough box, but we can make sure we get the sections that everybody can just have a look at that. Yeah. And there are certainly plenty of discussions around, I think one of the key points Kim talked about initially was the need for a destination or a visitor centre, and those are all discussions that are happening at the moment as well. So very, very exciting. So thank you very, very much for that. You're very welcome to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch. Right.
Thanks, man.
Right. Councillors, any notification of items not on the agenda? If I'm talking too quietly, just indicate.
Yes, you are.
Sorry, okay. Declarations of conflict of interest. Any? Confirmation of minutes. Can I have somebody know the minutes as a true and correct record? Councillor John, seconded Councillor Franklin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Go through those page by page. Page 1. Sorry, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And can I have somebody, actually, councillors, are you happy to take all of those in that first motion? Thank you, Councillor Johns. Okay, moving on to the extraordinary meeting, page 21, page 22, page 23, page 24, the extraordinary meeting on the 11th of November, page 25, page 26, and 27. In the extraordinary meeting on the 15th of November, page 29, page 30. Thank you, councillors. I have somebody move the Explore Pākehā Tour community minutes, Councillor Franklin and Councillor Peter. Explore Pākehā Tour, page 31.
Just one comment on that,
Councillor
Your Worship. 6.3 at the bottom of that page, so it's a pity that Explore Pākehā didn't get a submission on time.
It was, can I just say, Your Worship, through you,
Disappointing.
it was discussed pretty strongly at that meeting, and the entire committee were not happy. It was an oversight by the chair. I actually suggested they put it in the minutes, to be perfectly honest, because I was so embarrassed that hadn't happened. So, yeah, well, it was a real fail on their part.
I don't think it would change anything.
Thank you. Right, page 32, page 33, page 34, page 35, page 36.
Could it, wish for more?
Councillor Wallace?
Yeah, on the pool, where'd they go? 30 grand, did they work? Did it work?
For the,
The
sorry,
extra funding.
sorry. Sorry, that 30,000 is what they
Applied
have
for, yeah.
tagged, no, they've tagged,
That's tagged.
that's tagged out of their funds to commit to the poll. So it's
Sorry,
definite.
got two voices going.
So it's definite, so of the funds that Explore Pahia Tour hold, they have tagged $30,000 as a contribution to the new poll, and that is definite.
Yeah, the question is it being done?
They're sitting there as tagged funds. The minute that Bush Aquatic Trust require any of those funds, it will be paid.
So at this stage, the pool's not leaking. The pool's not leaking.
This is
This is the new poll. This is the new poll.
These are tagged funds for
Not
the
the
new
town
new
bars.
poll.
This is the swimming pool, nothing to do with the new pool.
They call it, they refer to it as a swimming pool. The other ones are called the town baths.
Swimming baths. Yeah, swimming baths and swimming pool.
It's two different.
Sorry, Tracy, what I was led to believe there was going to be no money spent on that pool. This is the one down the road here.
No, so this $30,000 is funding that they have tagged to the Bush Aquatic Trust for the new indoor heated pool.
Thank you.
Councillor Johns.
It's on page 32, 7.1. I note that they've decided that the antiquated formality of meeting procedures are not necessary, and I'm wondering whether the more casual attitude toward the meetings was as a consequence of that. They failed to note or get the submission.
Can I? Yeah, you were there.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. No, that came up prior to the announcement being made. This is something that's been put in place afterwards. So they did run a very formal meeting structure, same way as council, same way as possibly Woodville and others. This actually came from advice from quite a big governance summit that one of the committee members went on, who has quite significant governance experience across a whole lot of organisations, and it was suggested at that meeting that this could be a new way forward for non-contentious motions. So they decided to trial that, see how it works, and actually it flowed quite nicely after they made that decision. So I don't think there was any casualness. I think every resolution was still read out, and there was a look around to see that there was agreement, and the chair made the decision. Anyone else had the right to challenge that decision. So I don't think the two issues are connected.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Gilmore. Right, page 35. Page 36. 37.
Your Worship.
Councillor Ward.
Can I just through you seek some input as to the youth centre service? I read in there that obviously Tararua Community Youth Services are pulling the plug on renting the youth centre building. However, what reassurance has Paitoa got that they will continue to provide some form of service?
Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I don't want to speak for Tararua Community Youth Services, so I can only sort of share the information that was shared at that meeting. What was shared at that meeting from the committee members is that there is still a commitment to be providing services in Pahiatua. What that looks like is undetermined, but they won't be having a physical presence within the town as a result of loss of funding.
Thanks for that clarification. I've just made a note. I have spoken to the whole fund, but I might actually just make an appointment and meet with the manager there and
Might be a
discuss
good
that.
conversation with Jean, your worship, yeah.
So I've made that note.
They worked really hard to get a service here.
And I think the other part of the conversation is with the Tararua, which if they actually have, through funding cuts, lost the aerodromes licensing and those sort of access as well. So there is a big hole currently in Pahiatua. Thank you. Right. There's nothing on page 38. Page 39, Councillor Franklin's thorough report. And all the reports. It's actually great to see those and get that insight because, you know, we had those reports, you know, that they were received, but actually we couldn't read into those. And I think that community groups, you know, should take heart that actually councillors do read all of this and are very interested. Right, if there are any questions, page 40, 41, 42. And very nice to see them so actively fundraising still for the polling. That's actually taken, I guess, accelerated. Like I'm enjoying seeing how many blocks, you know, have been sold just with that momentum growing. But they've also got a garden tour, which I look forward to going on as well. The Chief Executive and I did meet with Mercury Energy in regards to sponsorship, so I'll make contact with Worship on it. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Worship. Could I just add to this, these minutes that the dog park is well underway. The line is all going on this week, so it's all been delivered to site. So that's another step forward. And I've spoken with Nigel Shaw about the mowing because the lawn, the grass right across the park was like this, but it had been so wet from the rains that we've had that they had to postpone, knowing that they were doing it this week. So thanks, crossed.
Thank you. Right, nothing further on page 42. We'll move into Positively Helpful Community Committee. Can I have somebody move that they are listed those minutes are received? Councillor Gilmore and Councillor Johns. Thank you. Right, page 43. Page 44. Page 45. Page 46. And the minutes of the Dennyburg Community Board. Somebody move those be received. I'm happy to do so. Thank you. Second for seconding, Councillor Johns. And those in favour, press aye.
Just, it's on page 5. It's said that that the Wheels with Attitude hasn't had
What page you got?
page 5 of that report, which is page 51.
Page 51. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I thought you just moved.
Sorry, we're just going through it on the page. I'll stop on that one. So page 47, page 48, page 49, page 50,
Your worship,
page Councillor Forwards.
in item 8, reports from the Chamber of Commerce, it is noted there that Waka Kotahi are funding the traffic management.
Yes. Yes.
That's correct.
So there's two towns have received funding from Waka Kotahi as part of their commitment to our communities. So the Woodville Christmas Parade was also funded from Waka Kotahi last year and Dennyburg this year because they had some funds available. So a great solution.
Yeah.
And we will, you know, we'll obviously be looking at this. This will become to the forefront next year, but very grateful for that funding this year.
Fantastic.
Yeah. in page 51, so Councillor Wallace, I was present at the meeting and I'm unsure as to why it can't, but my understanding was that they couldn't get the showgrounds on the date that they wanted.
Yeah, the problem is the 25 years that it's been going, I've been involved with it from the beginning and it started with nothing.
Yeah.
And it comes, and we don't want to lose this event to Danny. It's huge. And the thing is, it's like it's a car calendar.
Yeah.
So if you go to Danny Wheels with Attitude, then you go to Miani, then you go to wherever, right? So that's what drives the destination,
Correct.
the car calendar. And in the past, there was never a thing. It was always on that last weekend in February, Waitangi weekend, and it was fine. Now, that's from what I've heard, there's different committees haven't talked, but maybe we're losing it for 26. There's no way. So 27, I think maybe there's some opportunity here, rather than just let it go. That we can, because they did run it on a different weekend last year and it cost them money. Not that they do it for making money.
Yeah.
It's only a $2 entry fee, but it's somewhere everybody goes to. I don't know if there is any liaison with the AMP because it's to give you the size of it, that whole arena is chocker with event cars and the other paddocks are full with spectators' cars. So, and it's just growing and now obviously because of communication, I don't know how the horsey people run, but for 25 years it wasn't a problem. You've got to ask yourself, is it a conflict of interest with personalities, or is it, all I'm thinking about is a betterment. In this case, it's not a district thing, it's a Dannyburg thing. So maybe we need to put our thinking caps on it. And
there's nowhere else.
Well, there is. I thought of, and I don't know the legal aspects, but I know we own it. But and I don't know if we can do it. As the airport sign comes to my mind. So it goes from 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's not forever. That's the first one. There was the high school and the North School and all that, but it's not big enough. So maybe that paddock's sitting there all the time. It's just maybe if we can, I don't know the laws with planes and cars, but for one day for 6 hours, it would be a great. I'd hate to see we lose that because once we lost it, it's gone. Because somebody else, Takapau's already trying to start it. They'll nab that date. You know what it's like? They nab the date. Anyhow, that's right. Where I'm at.
Thank you. And if I haven't had your contact, but you said there was a whole event. I presumed it had been for a double booking.
Yeah, it was just to clarify that last year I said to Tristan, go and book it now.
Yeah.
So this doesn't happen. He booked it now. Then they said, oh, new committee, we didn't get it. Well, there was a breakdown, but I can't. That's what they said. I'm not privy to it, but we want the AMP to succeed too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
No problems with them.
Yeah.
Well, they own the ground.
No, well, just through you. I mean, what's that got to do with us?
In respect to,
I mean, if it's an issue with the organisation not booking the ground or whatever.
oh, where I'm going to is trying to leave them out. I'm asking for the airport. That's to do with us. We own it.
What we do with us.
No, I don't know the procedure. That's the question.
We can make contact with the committee, but my initial thoughts are there would be quite a few restrictions on the airport because the plane taking off and landing is critical. So it's around, and I know even with the land that is leased, there's criteria around where that's mowed and how that's kept so that they don't get any bumps and bits. But the committee at the airport will be the ones to to discuss that. So whether you want to pass that on to the organisers, and we can try and get the committee's name. Where, Councillor Peter Weber.
I'll just quickly, so I've heard that the show's going to be running 2 big days, like Saturday and Sunday. So it's always run horses on Sunday and they use half the park, but on the Sunday is going to be using the whole park. Yeah, that's what I've been told. So they're just changing the structure from last year.
Just make a note for the committee. Right, thank you. Page 52.
Sorry, Your Worship. Haven't been aware, my apologies, but on page 52, there was mention there around a local voices event. Any feedback from anyone? Did anyone?
Councillor Long did attend the meeting.
Okay.
I think Councillor Long, how many people were at the local voices meeting?
Approximately 40.
About 40 residents.
And the purpose of that, sorry?
Wasn't clear from the advertising notes or the purpose, Councillor Long.
To gauge interest in probably the rates increases over the last 3 or 4 years. And the response from the community for that. And if there was anything that they could do.
On the outcome?
They're looking at having another meeting in February next year.
Thank you for that update. Right. No. Let's clear off those minutes. 27 councillors, are you happy to have a 10-minute break for coffee or carry on?
Yeah.
I'll June just for the 10 minutes if we can. So it's currently been run by me 10:27, so we'll come back at 10:10. Right.
Open the doors open.
Welcome back, councillors. Just in regards, Councillor Wallace and I went to zone 3. We just went through the community committee, community board minutes. Middle 2 District did a presentation on their community committees, and I noted with interest that they get $3,000 each within their communities. So even though some of our funding has been reduced, it is significantly more in some of the districts. So I thought that was good to note. Councillors, if I can just go back, I just have an item, notification of items that weren't on the agenda, but I do however have one late item. Can I just ask for someone to move that we do receive that late item? Councillor Gilman, second Councillor Wards. All those in favour, please say aye. And that's just in regards to the Woodville Christmas Parade. Thank you, councillors. Right. We'll move on. The draft of the proposed district plan for pre-consultation. So welcome Amy, welcome Dan. This has been a very long journey for both of you, and some fascinating learnings for us along the way.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And I think, you know, when you work on a project of this size, it's important to celebrate the little milestones. And I think today, hopefully, it's one of those because, yeah, a lot of work does go in and a lot of time glued to a screen and you know, canvassing the issues. And I think I said to Mayor Tracy the other day, you know, the hardest part of the document like this is they're not designed to read from cover to cover. and that's kind of the hardest part. that's the hardest part when you're trying to present it and get people to understand it and acknowledge it, because you can't help but read it from cover to cover. So I can appreciate, you know, there's a lot of detail in there, and obviously we've had a few workshops along the way and talked at length about, I guess, the key themes out of the district plan. The summary documents go a long way to explaining those. They will be at the forefront of the consultation period. As I've said along the way, you know, this is a deliberate stage in the process for us to have this 3-month consultation period. It is probably a lot longer than other ones that we do, but it is acknowledging, one, having Christmas in the middle of it, but two, you know, it is a complete new plan. We talked at the workshop the other day about, you know, it's so different to the existing one that it had to be its own new document. So we really want to give it a chance for people to absorb it. Our key stakeholders, you know, the likes of Horizons, Waka Kote, you know, those key agencies, local iwi, local community groups. We've booked in time with all the community groups to go and talk with them. Obviously drop-in centres and all that thing is all in train, as well as just other one-on-one conversations along the way with, as I've said, throughout with everybody in this room, but also, you know, other key members of the public that have an interest in this development community and all that sort of thing, because we really want to make sure that we really test this document over the next 3 months, so that when we get to the formal process, we've kind of, as I said, rounded off those rough edges and we can push into that formal process with a new district plan that we all are proud of and will help us, you know, manage land use and activities on our land moving forward. So I don't have a plan to go through anything today. It's obviously being circulated. We have had that workshop a week or so ago. So yeah, happy to take any questions that you may be.
Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Thanks for that. And as we discussed the last week, I think it was, or the week before, great to see. One, is it intended that there'll be zoning maps included with the?
Yep.
It's not on here currently.
No,
It's going to be live on the website.
it is live on the website. We have got access to it if you want us to bring it up on the screen and we can have a look at it. It is very much the same as what was put forward with the growth strategy. So it reflects those new rezonings for the 4 main townships. Outside of that, the only other real zoning changes are obviously converting the commercial zone to mixed use, and then picking up Waterloo Park and the Paetua milk factory as new industrial, and then obviously the new industrial growth part to the west of Woodville. Other than that, there's no real zoning changes. We have left out, obviously, off the back of the workshop, we haven't got any zoning changes for any council facilities, reserves, anything like that. the chapter obviously sits in here and exists as a framework, but we will obviously have ongoing discussions with the parks team and the councillors around what's appropriate moving forward in that space, around what zoning we can, apply to those pieces of land moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Echo what Councillor Johns was saying, huge amount of work. So really exciting to see it get to this stage. The only question I had, and it kind of follows on from our workshop, we had some discussions about density requirements, and there was a feeling, I think from some in the room, that perhaps the requirements, this was on page 250, sort of supplementary papers, that was perhaps a little bit too restrictive. So I see that doesn't appear to have changed in the document. I'm just keen to understand the process.
Sorry, what was that?
Page
215.
250.
250, the bottom of 250 of our supplementary, our attachment document.
So what was your question?
So that has changed. So if you look at the standards, GRA's S1 rural density, originally it was 1 unit per site on sites under 40 and 1 minor. Now it's been increased to 2 per site and 1 minor. And for sites over 40, it's been increased from 2 to 3 units per site and 1 minor. So it has been an increase off the back of the workshop. I personally don't believe that for the purpose of that standard as a permitted activity, we can go beyond that, given the rural character and amenity, but also the rural resource and what the intent of that land is. And obviously, that discussion dovetailed into our one about Papakainga, and obviously Brian brought up around the Te Puni Property definitions. You'll see that that's been rolled into the definitions chapter, which is probably quite a bit more extensive than what you saw the first time around. That's really key in the sense that a lot of those definitions put all this stuff into context because it gives you what it means and behind. So obviously we've wrapped the provision of Papakainga around that definition. So
Through you, Worship. Thanks for that. And yes, sorry, I thought it was at 2, so thank you for making that change and the explanation of why we personally I would be comfortable with it going further, but I think you've been clear as to the reason why. And I did just want to mention that Papakainga definition, and thank you for including that. It was a really nice, clear summary.
Thanks, Councillor Gilmore. Councillor Wallace and Councillor Watts.
I was answered, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I apologise if it's covered off in the workshops,
okay.
but a couple of comments and 2 queries really. Great, I mean, not that I read it cover to cover, but I was very impressed that the consultation period is going to allow some technical adjustments to be made if experts or feedback allows that. Your community groups that you referred to in terms of the consultation, how broad ranging is that? I mean, I guess I'd be keen to have this presented to, the community committee at Pongaroa, for instance. Very small group, but very passionately interested in something like this. So is your plan schedule going to be covering off those, or are you keen on?
So at this stage, the ones we've booked in are the 4 main townships because those are the ones. But I guess for me, this is probably my most exciting part of planning. I love going out and talking to people about stuff. So it's open for 3 months. Other than a bit of Christmas time, then more than happy to book things in with whoever you think might have an interest in this. We can come sit down and talk through. I guess the key part is in lieu of those meetings is to kind of try and hone in what parts of the plan would be relevant to them.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you can all appreciate, there's a heck of a lot of stuff in here, and it's going to mean different things to different people. So, and
that kind of is the segue to my last question, Your Worship, is, and you may have done it in the workshops, I'm sorry, but I was keen to understand some scenario options around. So we have this happening here. If they wanted to do that there, what does that mean? And I think in particular communities, Dan, I think you're right, there's going to be different ways they're going to look at this.
Yeah.
And whether or not in that workshop, was there some different scenarios played out, or is there still an opportunity to?
We can certainly, and I think
That's maybe what I want to think to you.
as much as, everyone else is talking about, Amy's team back at council is going to, pull out some consents and run them through the new plan as well. I think the key message I'd probably say is that the new plan doesn't actually change really anything that you can or can't do with land to what currently exists. A lot of the change has gone into the consenting framework, and that's obviously where we talked a lot at the workshop around matters of discretion. So obviously at the moment our plan is pretty broad and unhelpful in that sense. So for us, a lot of the focus in here is really having some meaningful examples of things that need to be addressed through that consenting. So the permitted activity window we've tried to keep as permissive as possible in line with the current regime, because as we all have committed to, we want to provide for growth in this district. We want to enable it. If we start increasing all the barriers to entry, then that's only going to hurt it. So I think for me the key thing is we've really strengthened each zone. So this zone is for this purpose, and this zone is for this purpose. And we literally had an example pop up the other day of where there's houses in the industrial zone, and it's causing issues because that's not an industrial use, but yet you've got all these homes there. So that's a big focus in here, is to say no, this zone is for this purpose, not for this myriad of all sorts of different things. And then, as I say, strengthening up the consenting now.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Councillor Johns?
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Am I right in saying that the development contributions or financial contributions will sit outside the district plan?
Yeah, so at this stage it's not in here. It's easy to slot it in whenever we make the decision that it is going to go in. But I think for the reasons we talked about at the workshop, I personally, as a technical expert, am comfortable to put something in there because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in behind it to enable us to draft the most appropriate chapter to go with that situation.
Right, but it will form. It
will form, as my understanding, and having discussions with Amy and Raj, is that when we get to formal consultation, it will be in there.
Right. No, thank you.
Councillor Sutherland?
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I think just a comment. I think the longer term consultation will be great.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get to the end of it, we don't have to spend a lot of time hearing that. I think the more work we do before consultation closes, will be the better. I've had a bit of discussion around Dannevirke and there's some issues with some people around the zoning, but best left to consultation. And as you know, I wasn't entirely in agreement with everyone here about rural numbers. Good time to leave that to the community. But I can't wait for the E-plan to turn up, because I think that will be the end result. But anyway, just touching on Peter's comments too. So the development and financial contributions, of course, are going to be impacted by local water. That's going to be the issue that's turned up now. That's going to change things a little bit. So, but yeah, very good work, and let's get on with it, I reckon. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Right, any further questions?
Happy to move.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendations on page 55, 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3, just noting councillors, the chief executive is authorised to make any final edits. I will have a couple in the forward and maybe on the head, so I'll just let them know that and then to circulate that. So moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Johns. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks. Carried. Well done. I guess it is the exciting part coming out and talking to the communities about it, but also thank you for the work that's gone in with the Mock community and wind farms and some of those questions. And I know you've got another session coming up there as well. So councillors, if you can take this out in your reports to community committees and boards, if you can raise this, it's certainly the time for them to be involved. Look forward to having some of the people that use this plan regularly submit and let us know how they feel about it as well. I do have a catch up and have some feedback on this, so I'll push in mention it to them as well. So well done, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Item 9.2 is the proposed sale of the farm, Denbrook wastewater, and this is just an update from Peter Windsor, who's joining us online. And we can go through later this afternoon. Peter, is there anything you wanted to highlight from the report, and I guess a little bit of an update for councillors on just the information that you have still got coming in the pipeline for us before any decision?
Through your worship, thank you everyone. So it's a brief update because there's still a lot that we have to go through and check through. And that's really what that report was about. We said that we'd report back soon, and we have, but we still need the engineers on site to confirm the actual design. So we're at that stage. Is there any questions?
Councillor Gilmore and Councillor Johns.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I've got a couple of questions on this. So thank you very much, Peter, for the report. In point 3 on page 70, particularly looking at the MC, it talks about potential adverse effects, and in C it talks about potential issues. Just wondering what are the potential adverse effects? I can see that you've made it clear that the likelihood is reduced, but really keen to understand what the potential adverse effects and the potential issues may be if we proceed.
Yeah, through your worship, they're more around the physicality of the design and how the solar panels will actually sit on the pond and stay where they're intended to be without actually affecting or damaging the liner or access to the pond in future. So it's getting those aspects sorted. In terms of the biological effects, we're much more relaxed about that in terms of the scale and effect. So that was just to settle that particular issue.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. And I suppose for me, it is quite an important asset for us, and I'm in support of it in principle. I'm just really keen to make sure that we, as a district, are protected if there is any unforeseen adverse effects. So I suppose you probably aren't at full contract stage, but what I want to, I guess, tease out is if we were to do this, we've got a level of comfort, but we find that having it there causes some significant issues to our process. Would we have the ability contractually to withdraw from that? Because what I would hate for us to end up with is a situation where we've agreed to it, we've thought everything was all good. It's not something that generally happens, it hasn't been done in a whole lot of places. We find out with our environmental conditions that we have some significant issues, but we're stuck with it because we've got a contract. So I want to make sure if those issues come up, we're protected and we have an ability to exit.
Yeah, so once again, through Mayor Tracy, the issue that we've identified is more around how we have the installation and manage it in respect of things like wind and how wind will act on the panels themselves and how well they are controlled in the actual site, given that we will be anchoring them on the edge of the pond rather than to the bottom of the pond. That means that they have to be tied in space so that they can't move, and that's the risk area that we're worried about. In terms of insurance, this is where we need to have a comprehensive understanding of the different insurance policies that the supplier owner of the solar panels will have in terms of what protection that gives us.
I'm sure this has been a problem.
Yeah.
And I can go back to the queue if you like.
If that's okay, Councillor Green or Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Mr. Tracy. Similar concern, I guess. E.g., if wind broke one away and it tore the line, who pays for that?
Yeah, that would be done contractually.
And or if something needed to be done to the pond and it meant dismantling the solar farm for a period of time, who's paying for the dismantling of the solar farm and the resurrecting it, replacing it, etc.? Is that us? Or is that
Not us.
It's
no?
not our risk.
Okay, but there'll be something in the contract that allows us to do that if we need to.
Through your worship, there would be a matter of contract. So they are contracted to supply electricity. They are the owner of the solar panels. They occupy the site. So damage of our asset is a responsibility on the solar farm owner. And that's how it will be contractually, and making sure that all aspects are covered off in the insurance policies is one of those contractual matters that we will be looking at.
If I could continue on that, that if we needed to do something to the pond for whatever reason, are they likely to say, well, you know, if you need to take them out for a period of time, that's entirely your cost to take them out so that you can do something to the pond? That could be quite expensive. And I guess the second thing is, the second issue is, I see that number 5A, we're expecting to be provided with a stable electricity price and discount. I would have liked to have seen that as somewhat more positive, that we will be provided with a stable electricity price and discount. Otherwise, okay.
So through your worship, the only reason we can't say that is that we've only got a draft, sorry, it's a bit blurry, but a draft contract. So we haven't got to that negotiation phase. It's just too soon for this report to be able to report back that we've got that nailed down.
This councillors is an update, but it's good feedback for Peter and the team to know, so that when the report and decision-making report comes to council, we'll have all the information that we need, because these questions certainly are being asked in the public as well. I've had some questions around the anaerobic state of the ponds and some of that. Councillor Wallace?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Tracy. To Peter, yeah, you're right. This is just a repeat of last month, really. There's no substance in this document as an update. And reflecting on what's said in there, because you, in the very first part, you've got to kind of bet each way. I love the way you wrote that. Words, you're a good wordsmith. But yeah, I'm worried. I know we don't own it, but I am worried if we've got to take the sludge out. Do you move the pond? Do you move it away because it's our sludge and it's covered up? So all those type of things. And after just hearing what Mayor Tracy just said, it's about certainties. I just want to know, in a nutshell, real simple English, we're going to make X amount of dollars and it's not going to cost us one rahu. Simple as that.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. I think the only comment I'd make is that the report's not without substance, but it is without some of the finalities. And I guess it was, I just wanted, and Peter providing this information is that it is public interest, it's a public asset, and just giving the opportunity for people to see the update and know that the questions that we have raised were being addressed. And I guess it's a challenge if everything's coming in just at that last decision-making process. So I've had feedback from public as well. So I do hear what you're looking for.
Yeah, supplementary, Tracy, that's exactly it. We are the Board of Trustees of this council, of this district, and or governance of this ratepayers of this district. So yeah, we don't want to go down in flames. To be fair, and I think, hey, as you say, and it does worry me about this time frame. It's a turnkey operation by the 1st of March. Is that correct? And everyone disappears, as we know, for 6 weeks. In a couple of weeks' time, it's December next week. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I've got to err on the side of caution when I'm making decisions in haste. You know, that's where I have not got a good feeling about this. I know it's not going to cost us anything, but I want to make sure, as long as you give me an iron cast, and if you've got all those people that are just going to fill the boxes in now, but they go on holiday too, so yeah. I just don't, yeah, I think we might have lost the boat. The boat's already left.
Peter, you've got your hand raised.
Oh, yes, just thank you, Your Worship. So the one thing that we have got a positive result for is the anaerobic activity in the pond, is that's going to be minor. So there's that is not a major factor, and it's something that can be readily managed. So that is set to one side. It's now about the physicality of the location, and as you say, access later. But even then, for what purpose? Sludge we're expecting to be reduced at the front end of that pond system. So this is where it's going. We've got land down below, which allows us to do further post-treatment systems. We need to look at our consent in 4 years' time, that we need to look at land-based disposal options, which are in the LTP. So that pond and its current function is likely to continue. A dip test of the sludge will probably tell us what the current state and requirements will be over the next 10 years. And remember, this is the objective is that this is a 10-year contract.
Thanks, Peter. Peter, you just highlighted you had some answers around the anaerobic, and I guess my question is, do you have a report on that? And the other one is, with that dip test, have you actioned that so that we will have more certain data for the December decision?
Yes, Mayor Tracy, I have a report from our engineers on the aerobic activity, but in terms of, I don't know when the team can schedule that dip test, as I call it, but it's on the horizon that it has to be done.
Okay, thank you, and apologise, councillors, for skipping the queue. Councillor Kilmore, then Councillor Chase.
No, I think covered by Councillor Jones. It was really just around the percentage increase, but the percentage discount, but that's been adequate.
Thanks, Councillor Kilmore. Councillor Chase.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Peter. I do have some concerns with, I know you've done some answering to a lot of our concerns, but I'm still left with uncertainty that this is actually foolproof for us to be okay with it. I want it to be a 50-50 win-win for both of us, but I actually see a lot of our unintended consequences actually probably coming to the forefront, and also the possibility of some of your remedies, and if they were to come, is still going to cost us ratepayers. When you say that we could always use another pond at the bottom, which if you think about that, that's how much is that going to cost us, which would be another cost to get it up to be another pond. I want it to be that there are no additional cost to ratepayers by being able to have this possibility work for us. I'm more concerned with, I want to have guarantees. I don't want to be seen expecting to provide. I want to say we will be supplying stable electricity, discounts and stuff. I want to have certainty that we have a foolproof system in place to remove sludge. I know that we've got a foolproof plan that if anything was to happen, that they will cover the cost. That's kind of what I want to see in the next report.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you for sharing that, and the councillors for letting people know exactly what we need and what's going to prepare. So that's really helpful. Any further questions or direction? No. Peter, have you got anything to add there? Any last comments?
Well, we've got a list to do, and I said that I would report back at the next infrastructure climate change meeting. I don't think that all of that information will yet be even then available. So we're working through it. It's a very active project. What you're seeing is an update of a very active project.
No, thank you for your work on that. Much appreciated. Councillor Peter Weather.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Can I have a second to that? We received that report. Councillor Sutherland, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Right. Moving on to item 9.3, the contestable fund process. So welcome Carter and Grace. I know we had a lot of questions last time, but it's through question for the committee and the community committees and wanting to see things go ahead in the community. So thanks for the work that you've done on that.
Excellent. All right, so we tried to take on board all of the key feedback that we got, keeping it as simple as it possibly can be, making the process for applicants really clear, and kind of streamlining it so that what we're bringing forward isn't also going to introduce a lot of workload for councillors as well. So for the most part, I'm going to take the report as read because I want to make sure we have time to discuss any questions, comments or concerns as we go through.
Okay, thank you, Jo. Councillor Wards.
Thank you, Worship. Great stuff. Okay, three or whoever's put this together. I really appreciate the thinking that's gone on to this. Do you believe that once we get things tracking along a bit more, is there going to be a requirement, because I think the reference was every council meeting, if there's something to decide on, then we will have a decision to make, or is it going to end up being quarterly, or I mean, I know you've got 2 6-month. So it will be. So for the current round, we've proposed 2 funding rounds. We did discuss the idea of just leaving it open, given that was feedback we received in the last meeting. But as we discussed that, we realised it would actually be really hard to assess applications if we didn't have anything to compare it to. How would we know if we were receiving, a few applications every month? The first 3, we might think, oh yeah, that sounds great, and you start giving away a lot of money at the start without knowing what's going to come later. Yeah. So for this, given we've only got 6 months left of this financial year, we proposed 2 rounds. For the next financial year, we haven't put a set amount. We've suggested 1 to 4 at this stage. And also, if we realise that those 2 rounds don't work in the next 6 months, we can obviously readjust the process as we go. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, you said 1 to 4? You were
1 to 4 rounds for having applications come through, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore.
Thanks very much, Worship. It's really a follow-on to Councillor Waters' question. I know we were talking about having it open to start with. I suppose my concerns and what I want to just make sure we've thought out, representative travel kind of jumped out at me. We have had some cases where people have found out on relatively short notice that they need to travel, and they've been able to apply it on. And we've even had some that almost didn't fit in our monthly council cycle when they've gone and done it. That was kind of a key feature that we've had for years as a grant application process, and it worries me that we might have some of our young representatives miss out because they won't fit within that cycle. So I'm not sure if I'm actually quite comfortable, and I understand the rationale for having 2 rounds. What I would like to have in there though is a provision for an urgent funding round. So it's not our standard process, and perhaps it could be with agreement from the mayor or something like that, where we say we're outside, we have a paper that this is outside of our funding round, but it's deemed important enough to be able to access that fund, and then that might give some certainty to be able to benchmark. But something really extraordinary that we want to fund as a council, we would have the ability to do. So that would be a compromise, I think, that meets what I was looking for when we first talked about it, but it kind of helps you operationally. And then my other bit, Your Worship, was I see in there, and I don't have a problem with staff going through and assessing whether something meets the criteria. I do think it needs to be open though to make sure that we see anything that's declined, because ultimately we are going to be seen to be responsible as councillors for the process. So I think that we need to have an appreciation of if an application was declined, and it could just be for this reason, doesn't meet criteria for this reason. So I think that needs to be reported through as part of the process, so we could at least question that or ask the ones questions.
Through Tracy, that is the intention, is that we provide a summary of the declined applications and the reasons, and so you get to see all the applications.
Thank you. There was a really good point around the International Parent Assistance Fund. So we would put something in around how we do that, because those applications, in my experience, 6 weeks to 2 months is the maximum amount of times they sort of get once they're selected, because they've got a criteria that they've got to meet before they get that opportunity. So whether we can just have a think about whether we need to add something into the motion to allow for that, or whether you can work that into your process to sort of know.
Yeah, I think it can definitely be worked in quite easily, and it's just if there's an urgent event in between rounds, and it would mean they would otherwise be missing out on funding that they could, but for anything that can wait until the rounds, then it is the first one.
Excellent. Brian, you've got a good
I'm just wondering if it's worth considering as well. I agree that sort of everything wrapped up in this one contestable fund is sort of different elements. So the intention was that everyone can apply. I think the risk might be with that international fund is that they don't get it and the fund has all gone. So if we go 2 rounds and we go 50k, that goes next round 50k, and then a month later they need it, there may not be any funding at all. So I'm just maybe proposing for the planning process where there might be separate fund just for that purpose, because there's no guarantees that there will be funding available should they apply.
I'll allow you follow up.
That's a direct response. I don't disagree through Your Worship. Perhaps, that's something that we need to be mindful of as we're making our decisions, and it could be that we know that there's $10,000 a year that needs to be kept. That it's not always going to necessarily be used, so we could get to the end of that, and then that could be dished out. So we know that generally we need to keep about 10,000 aside. That's just part of our decision-making process.
I agree. I think that it's quite easy, and it wasn't traditionally 5,000. I have seen that full 5,000 used only once. But actually you could say this is an amount that's tagged almost for that. And
we haven't given any thought, so we know we just need to
take that into the budget process.
So is it a $90,000 contestable fund? So that's what I was sort of getting at. We've got a $100,000 contestable fund. We hold back 10, then it's a $90,000 contestable fund. In a lot of ways, we are saying exactly what I'm saying. Let's pull out 10 grand and 5 or whatever the amount is, and earmark it specifically for that fund. So we're then reducing the amount that everyone else has a contestable fund for.
Yeah. I guess for me, what I was meaning is actually it doesn't have to be. It just has to be a mental tag knowing that you've got that there. Because in all the years I've seen $5,000 rated for year upon year, but only one of those years that it was all used. So, and it doesn't carry over. So I think if you've got a contestable fund, people can see what's available and what isn't. And if you get, there has only been, I think, once where we've had a late application in that last year, but Sport 1 or 2 can genuinely tell us at any point what athletes we've got that are even in the running for that. So I'm aware that we've got 2 at the moment, a young Evie Treader and also our young boxer. So those are just the 2 in both their events. We can probably get some indication of when they're coming up. So unless anyone else is aware of others, but that one. Right, I've got Councillor Wallace next, and then Councillor Franklin, Councillor Johns.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. Does the application stay live even when you run out of money? So you've passed all the criteria, you're in there, but the purse is empty until the next year.
Through you, Mayor Tracy.
It's
No.
a little bit like what Brian was saying, you got a little bit left over, but so those people, they've met it all, but they were 2. In other words, first in, first win.
Answer that. So yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why I'm very keen on having an open and finished note. So if you get, and quite often in my experience, you might have $100,000 worth of applications, but only have $50,000 available. So when you go through the applying funds, not everyone might not get what they ask for, because you might say these, actually all of these are good applications, all of them meet the criteria, they're all scored the same. So it might be as simple as $1,000 each. You know what I mean?
That's the question.
That's the sort of the issue that you may have, and that's what I'm sort of thinking, even if we earmark something else. So that's why I'm sort of really proposing that there is a separate, because one, if we have these sports ones that have then gone into a contested fund of all the others, are we automatically, and what I'm hearing here, they should score higher than any other application to ensure that they didn't get funding. So that's sort of just some of the concerns. What will be one if they score less or are the same and don't get what they've requested? So
it's not a request. The International Travel Fund is set amounts.
But we don't have that.
Correct, but there was no indication from councillors that we would move away from the 500 or the 800 sort of criteria that was already in place.
Well, yeah.
So that, excuse me, is that what you're saying? The cap is 5 or 800?
So that was what the International Travel Fund, and I guess this was
No, in these applications.
No. So that was what the previous.
Okay, so what is the cap on these applications?
So there's nothing being set.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Rather, we should probably look at a cap so we spread the jam further.
I think there's, if I went around the room right now and said to councillors, what projects are you aware of in the community that might be applying to this fund? So if there was two $50,000 rounds, which is what I'm thinking that you'll get, I'm envisaging that one of those would be later on, so that in that final round you didn't have funds left over, and there may be from the first round, you may not give it all out, but you may not get enough. Everyone's thinking that it'll be oversubscribed, but you may not. You may have some left over. You don't know what's there, and if that last round is aimed towards the end of the financial year, that's when you know that actually you can raise those levels, because other groups can apply again at that time. So I think this one is a learning curve. It's a new thing that we have done. But from talking to Eastern Central Community Trust, I know from the Wairiki Trust, the number of applications have really decreased, and we've probably got some indication if we went back through our community boards and community committees of what they have given away funding, but that's the criteria that we can see. Councillor Franklin.
Well, mine was just a question around the application for assistance for travel overseas to represent New Zealand or the district. In the form, from memory, I just tried to bring it up, but I couldn't find it. There's a question in there that says, if you do not get this funding, will you still go? And that's come in the form at the time that they're applying for it. And I had the question from the last person who asked about, well, parents said, well, we want them to go, so we don't want to stop them. But if they said no, then we're not going to give them the money. So how does that question necessarily need to be asked?
It won't.
It won't.
It'll be a different, no, you don't understand.
Oh, good, thank you.
Right, Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Ms. Tracy. Yes, as you know, I was against the proposal, the last discussion, the workshop discussion. Primarily because it was just far too bureaucratic. And decisions were being made further afield, but not by people closer to the action that might be able to assess the relative merits of application. But I guess my feeling is that let's suck it and see. You can always change the system in a year's time, or probably have to give it a full year after the 6-month period. So in 18 months' time, if you felt it wasn't working, it could be changed. Let's see how it goes.
Thanks, Councillor Johns. Councillor Gilmore. Okay. Councillor Wallace.
So going back to my original question, what is the cap, or is there no cap?
Yes, no, Tracy, there's a cap for the funding round, but not for the applications. So somebody can request, they could request 20,000. We recommend that they get 10,000, and then the decision comes to the council for the actual determination of how much the application.
So the determination rests with us.
Yes, yeah. So we'll be providing a recommendation, and then the final decision is up to.
And the people that don't get it, or you run out of money, can go into the next round, or they have to start back and go?
Through you, Tracy, as it is, they have to reapply.
Thank you.
And that would be standard. Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Tracy. I see the post-funding requirements, they have to put a completion report within 12 months. So does that mean that they have to use the funds within 12 months? I've just known with the community board, we've carried over funds, carried over. So I just don't want that to happen with this new fund.
Brilliant, Tracy. So it's within 12 months of receiving the fund or upon completion of the project. If it's a large fund that's being given, for example, Whanganui District Council, we spoke with them, and if they give over 5,000, they ask for 6 monthly updates. So we can request updates along the way, but if the project isn't completed, then the final completion report can be after the 12-month period.
Councillor Ward's.
Thank you, Tracy. I don't want to go backwards too much, but the discussion around the International Travel Fund, I'm possibly on the same page as CE, that this is an open contestable fund. When we start tagging stuff, we're changing the principles of this being open. And a bit like Councillor Johns, I'd like to do a bit of sucking and seeing before we start separating out, because the council's decision was 100,000. I don't want to, it's actually 90, just in case we get some international travel. So I would support what's been proposed here without trying to slice off anything before we even get started.
Councillors, I'm happy with a process where we actually let this flow and see what happens. And I guess why I haven't said, we've moved away from having those separate funds. The reason I did that is because in a decade, I've seen that fund used once. So over that time, you know, 8 years at 5,000 a year is $40,000 that ratepayers have put into that fund that hasn't been used for its purpose, and then that goes into an unders and overs. So I guess if we can, you know, have some more targeted, and I guess we'll get a good understanding this year, because since COVID, we haven't had, you know, the demand at all on that fund, so we're just starting to see that. So I think just holding and letting this process run, because I don't think this will be the only conversation that we have around this process. You know, what we were looking for and what we're getting.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Councillor Gilmore, you were talking about international funds. You're happy with that?
As long as we have the ability to have an audit cycle, if we need to, then I'm happy to see how it goes. We have to have the ability for digital answer and cycle.
So the audit cycle we could do between rounds, but after the final round of the funding was all
It's
done.
gone. The money's gone. Yeah. Once the money's gone,
do you have months that you're looking at for those cycles?
It's in the report, yeah, Tracy.
Yeah. Right. So if we're happy with that, so we've got that moved by, Councillor Johns and seconded by Councillor Ward. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much, Grace and Karen, for your comments. And I think the passion that you've seen here is also the desire to help the community in the most way that we can get these projects underway, because actually sometimes as a volunteer it can be jolly exhausting trying to raise funds and get things moving. So thank you.
Well done.
Okay. Councillor, we've got the operational projects update.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Tracy. So this is an update on the 3 main projects that I have under my group, and these are the rationalisation of land and building, Section 17 area reviews of swimming pools and camping grounds, and the reserve management plan. So for the rationalisations of land and building, so I promise to give you an update after each milestone. So as it is, we are in progress in stage 3, and that's the getting the draft report ready. So the draft report has been reviewed by staff as of yesterday, and you will get a copy of the report before the workshop that is due for the 4th, I think, of December. You will also get a list of the land parcels and the buildings that are in scope. We'll also remind you of the approach and just, you know, the criteria we use to get from 300 number to the top 20 of the land parcels and the buildings. So we go through those at the workshop. The following milestones will be actually after the workshop with yourselves on the 4th of December. It will be a formal presentation of the final reports on the 18th of December. The final reports, we have reports on each land parcel and each building with the recommendations of what we think should happen with each land parcel. And hopefully we take that report, the final report, away and we think about, you know, what can we do with the land parcel, the buildings, and in the new year we'll have to get back together and just work through, you know, the decisions really what we'd like to do. Any questions on the rationalisations projects? So moving on to Section 17 air reviews. So we did go through a tender process and the contract was awarded to Exist. Exist have the expertise in swimming pools, in doing the Section 17 air reviews for camping grounds and swimming pools. We have been working together with them to start to get the process and the projects underway. Just put a little bit of background there in the front before the progress update. So where we are at the moment is we are, so we completed stage 1, which is an initial workshop between staff and Exist, just to get an understanding of what we are going to do in the Section 17 air reviews. We completed stage 2, which is site visits and interviews with managers of camping grounds and swimming pools across the district. We are in stage 3, and that's information analysis. So we're working with 2 separate experts in the field. So we've got a swimming pool person and camping ground person. So they collected all the information that the interviews, and now they are in the process of analysing the information they collected and compiling that and drafting a report. So the next step will be another workshop with council on the 18th of December. So that's the proposed date, and it's to go through their reports for the Section 78 reviews for swimming pools and camping grounds.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great to see this card. I know in stage 5 the completion date is yet to be determined. That's okay, but I'm just well aware that we're going to start talking about annual plans soon. And I mean, some of what I'm picking will be significant recommendations out of this particular project will need to be factored in, won't they, Brian? So I've just got a question mark there, completion date to be determined. We don't want to lose the opportunity in our annual planning decision making, especially around the finances, to miss out on being able to do any of that. So is there the opportunity at the senior management level to, I mean, the workshop, I guess, will give us some sort of a high level sense, but.
Through your worship, you know, the intention is always that senior neighbourhood reviews would feed into the annual plan, probably a bit later than what we hoped for or planned for, because of a few other things that popped up. Has meant these have been probably pushed back by about a month, so but I do believe there'll be enough time to ensure that any key decisions that they will be able to go through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tracy. We were hoping to do it before, this side of Christmas, but it's, but I'm anticipating that the dates will be early next year, really. I don't think it'll be in the year. By the time we get to the workshop and the final, it should be quick enough. Okay, the reserve management plan, that's been going on for a few years now, but we are really making good progress. So we have the draft reserve management plan, which we used to consult with iwi. So we consulted with both iwi on the reserve management plan. We received feedback. We went back with a list of the reserves, and at the moment we are going through classification of the reserves with the iwi. That's where it is at the moment. They are making good progress. As of last Friday, they've completed the classification with one iwi. I think we still have another iwi to consult with. Again, a council workshop prior to consultation with the public. These are the next steps. So the public engagement is a 2-month period on the draft reserve management plan. We still have another chance, another opportunity to feedback on the reserve management plan during the public notification process. And then we will be looking at a public hearing and adopting the reserve management plan sometime next year. I don't really have the exact date. It's the consultation, I think, is from February to March is what we have penciled in. So by March next year we should finish the public consultation, and then it's just a matter of organising the hearings and adoption.
Councillor.
Just a quick question through you, Your Worship. 5.2.4, the public hearing that you just talked about, Carter, heard by a panel of councillors. So is that the councillors around the table that have RMA expertise, or?
The hearings panel, I confirmed when I read that.
Because from there, the recommendation to the full council, I wondered why you'd split out the 2 forums, that was all.
Through Mayor Tracy, I will double check that. I think it's my understanding was it's the full council, but it may have been in Yeah, I'll just double check.
Okay, just, yeah, I mean, if it was a committee of some kind, then, you know, that would be.
Some like that would be here and.
Yeah,
Such,
yeah.
because that's very different. Thanks for that clarification.
Any questions on the RFP? Or anything else?
Happy to move.
Okay, thanks. So moving the recommendations on page 79, 1.1 to 1.4, moved by councillor Wallace, seconded by councillor Long. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Karen. I know that there's a lot of work in the departments, so I got forward to Right, councillors, item 9.5 is the report from Local Government New Zealand, which is good to see them put out, and especially for around transparency. Anyone's got any questions or comments?
Great, always talk that.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
Happy to move it to be
Be
received.
received, thanks, councillor Johns, seconded by councillor Chase, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, carried. Right. Page 107, item 9.6, request for information under the Local Government Official Information Act. Thanks, report, Ellie. Does anyone have any queries? I see there's two coming in repeatedly just around the dynamic treatment ponds and grazing there. I just have to say I've actually had a look at a couple of these online, just when I've had different bits and remembered that something's been appointed, so I've jumped on and had a look, so it's really good that they're available there. Yeah. Okay. Right. Can I have somebody move that we receive that report? Moved to councillor Johns, seconded councillor Sutherland. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Right. Then just moving forward, there's a copy of the letter that was sent to some of the people that have shared that they had submitted, and also MPs just keeping them abreast of going with an information that we had. I will currently look at getting a letter off to the ministers individually prior to them making that decision. We still are waiting for some further information as well. If anyone's got any questions, you're welcome, councillor.
Yeah, it's in catch-up mode. I'm sorry, me, Tracy, but has NZTA convened their meeting, and did you have the opportunity to speak to it?
So no, we were declined the opportunity to speak to NZTA. They convened with an out-of-cycle meeting on the 11th of November and had their scheduled meeting on the 15th of November. So I've also been declined one of the first OIAs before I knew I had to do an OIA. So through the IFF just asked for the number of submissions, which would be, you know, something else. The number of submissions, you know, we're next to be quite excited and the council is as they come through. So that had to go through official information and process. The top 20 days, then they asked for an extension on that to the 25 days. On the 25th day, they declined that the number of submissions based on it being complex and
complex.
So I have councillors, for your information, I have lodged that with the Ombudsman because I think that for a highly impacted district that we're very engaged in that process. Just to know the number of submissions, one of our purposes was to make sure that our people had their voice heard, and so I haven't had feedback from the Ombudsman either, but I did note that to the politicians and MP Barber has had some questions with that, and I guess that's just around that. We try and be as transparent as we can. So that's where they're at the moment. I would presume from those meetings that they have made some form of recommendation, as was stated, to the minister, who will be evaluating the information and making his recommendation on paper to keep it. So hence I'm quite keen just to get, I haven't written to every politician, but I think it's just at this point, maybe a letter to the ministers that will sit and make that decision, just highlighting our key points. And, you know, that's where I thought this morning's presentation, you know, just around that geology, and really, really interesting to hear. And he talked about the Saddle Road. You could see it. You could see that.
Sites on there.
Absolutely. So, you know, some of our concerns around that road long term. So, yeah.
The silence has been deafening, is what it has been.
The silence has been incredibly deafening on it. So for something it's been, yeah, at the forefront. I don't know about any other councillors, but normally, even if we're talking about something else, the road will come into that conversation very, very quickly, because it just impacts every one of our lives, probably more than once a day. So, right, so that's my job tonight, is to construct that letter, and I think there is one mural holding for the Warringah Times Age, which I'll talk a little bit about this, and some of the transparency aspects.
It's a very good letter though, Tracy.
We were very, very, very fortunate that some of our locals through Little and Loud actually been given some pro bono work, helping in the background as well, which has been fabulous. There's been, you know, very grateful to the chief executive and the staff that actually have put in the additional hours, and many of it actually in their own time, to help this cause, because this has been on top of everything else. So certainly acknowledge that. We look forward to a great decision.
People way better at writing than me.
So, right, councillors, are there any portfolio reports or anything you wanted to highlight? Councillor Petty-Weber.
So I attended the Lions Christmas lunch on Sunday, and I just want to say a huge thank you for Lions, and Sharon, Councillor, was part of them, and it was such a great afternoon. Some local talent, you know, singing, and it's been going for over 40 years.
40 years we've been doing that.
40 years. It's such a great afternoon for the elderly in our community. Yes, big ups to Lions for putting that on.
No, I concur. It's one of the greatest privileges as a mayor to be able to go to that particular function when you are under 80 and just see what is put on. And I think the moment that I always sort of share is they have an option where they have prizes, and I've never seen bidding like it, because it was my first time attending. I didn't realise that actually no money exchanged hands, but it was very vibrant bidding, and they got up to some very high dollars. So it was quite funny to watch for the first time. So pass it on.
I will do so, because we have a Lions meeting tonight, so I'll endeavour to do that. But can I also add, I mean, I've been preparing those meals for 13 years, and this time was quite different in that there was a lot of new faces.
Yeah.
We've obviously had a huge influx of retired, well, you know, more mature people, but usually I would know most of the faces as they came through the door, but there was a lot of new ones this time.
Yeah, I'm learning as we're talking with our communities and sharing our histories, the importance of that is that we do have so many new residents. Councillor Sutton probably sees that on a regular basis. But it does mean that we have to share our histories, share our journey, and a lot more information, and actually take that into account when we are doing something. We can't presume that people know the history and how we came about, but it also impacts too on those services that we provide, because when people have moved here from somewhere else, you know, they might be used to, you know, rubbish at the gate and those sorts of things. So there's a little bit of that. I think the welcome packs are really good there, but I certainly know I've had similar experiences just going to some meetings.
I'll pass on your comments though.
Yeah. Can I just do a brief report
within the reunion.
Yep, absolutely.
Just add on to that comment there, but sadly, if we're going to lose our newspaper, a lot of that information doesn't get out. A lot of those older people use that newspaper to catch up on the new area. So, any update on that?
No, the submission there, sorry, they put the proposal to staff, they have asked for submissions. I know that many people would have made one, but I would have thought that that proposal was really just for staff to make a, but I'll check into that. But I have been working with others and just keen to see what can be done and what possibilities we've got, because it does open up a lot of opportunities for us and connecting communities. But that's the change that we are seeing incredibly. It's also in the rural farming papers and experiencing the same. Just the increased distribution costs and change in AI and technology is massive. I would just note that, and thank Councillor Wallace, is going to go to the 1st Battalion's change of command on Thursday, because the Lions Club here in Papiatua have got their Christmas lunch on Thursday, so I'll attend that, because actually it's a really good time to connect with some of those residents. So certainly thank Erin for standing in for that opportunity.
Did a great job.
It's just, it is a real privilege to be able to go and get sneak extra like Councillor Wallace.
Just reflecting on what Councillor Long just said, Tracy. I don't know if you realise, or I think all you know, I started Radio Dannywood in Dannywood some years ago when young Kerry, Councillor Sullivan was a councillor first time around. But anyhow, the upshot of what's going forward, because of the world's changing, a lot of people have taken and are using the radio.
Yes.
So it's that making that paradigm shift. And because you can listen to Dannywood radio anyway. So if we can get that, once they get where the lines are of communication are, because newspapers are a victim of technology. That's all it is. I mean, you know, how many sources of when was the last time somebody picked up a newspaper, physically bought a newspaper?
This morning.
Yeah, well, look at the age. Yeah. But no, I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? But if we can get it, like I listen to the newspaper, but it's on the phone. You know.
Yeah, and look, I understand that, and I guess for, you know, I've been working with different ones. It may not look the same, but what, you know, and I guess it's that stepping stone and what, you know, what that means to the district. I mean, one of the challenges that we've got is actually some of the public notices that have to be placed. That's actually, you know, for the alcohol licensing, the road closures and things like that. So it's just getting on top of all of it, but
well, that will come through the other mainstream, you know, the bigger reports.
That's the challenge for the Tararua district, because actually in the northern part would be the Hawke's Bay today, and the southern part of the district would be split between the Manawatu Standard and the Wairarapa Times Age, depending on the location. So it is quite a difficult one, but it's a conversation as a country that we need to have, because there's 12 big districts involved in this. So it just might be, you know, is there an interim measure, or, you know, how do we bridge that gap? So that's what we're doing.
Because I'll just quickly finish. I think going forward, newspapers will be gone, and all those type of reports that you have to put out will have to go to a government something like that. It is quite scary, because as we see, everything, especially with paper, it's all closing down.
Just in addition to that, thank you, Wish, the Wairarapa Star has been taken over by the local levy. And they've actually basically going to keep it going, so, which is really proactive. I would imagine the mayor of Wairarapa would have had a fair bit of input into that, so just another thought. Yeah.
You're right.
Just briefly on the reunion, because some of you were actually there. It was extremely successful. Sincere thanks to Scott and Steve for your help, particularly on the day. That was absolutely wonderful. And if it hadn't been for Tararua College, we'd have been up the creek without a paddle. The stadium had scaffolding, we couldn't use that. So the college were just outstanding and nothing was too much trouble. And the people that we spoke with afterwards, you know, the Polish people particularly, were very impressed with the facility and how obliging they were. The staff were parked out in Churchill Street so that the children who are in their 90s now could be brought right to the front door and their children's cars parked in the school car parks. So every single thing they did was with absolute grace. And so I have written a personal thank you to them on behalf of me. So I followed up on that. But I just wanted to add to the thank you to Mayor Tracy for taking me with her to Christchurch on Sunday. That was absolutely fabulous to be a part of the little Poland park that's now been named and blessed. And quite sadly, when we spoke about it with them, we discovered that the Christchurch City Council wouldn't allow them to call it Pahiatua Park, which was their first choice, because they wanted our community acknowledged in that. And so they, in the end, they did a little bit reluctantly agree to Little Poland. And on the sideboard, as you come into the park, there's a photograph of the children, a little brief history. So that's in there. But the hospitality, it was just outstanding, wasn't it? And you know, it's so fascinating. You're with them and they're talking to you in English, and the next thing they spill off and they slide off into Polish and we're sitting going. But the joy of those people, there were two women in their 90s, the original children, who did the unveiling of the bench seat and the tree plaque. It was just absolutely fabulous. Really rapt to have a couple of former Pahiatua residents who now live in Christchurch who came and attended and thoroughly enjoyed it as well, and discovered that they knew people that had been children of the descendants of the Polish children and never made the connection. So it was very, very special. So thank you very much to Tracy for taking me. And the treat coming home was flying the full length of Tararua and looking down through the turbines of the road. Wow, there's no way they're going to toll that thing over my dead body.
No, the story of the Polish children of Pahiatua is an important one to Pahiatua, but to the Tararua district as well. And when they called the park Little Poland, and they invited us to that, I think for them to hear, and I had a lot of feedback after speaking there, so they did invite me to speak at their opening. I think it was important for the Polish children themselves that were still there, was finding them in Christchurch. So after they left Pahiatua, many of them, I guess, went to Auckland, Christchurch and Wellington, so they had very strong Polish associations there, all of which had their 80th celebrations. So in Wellington they do have a couple of memorials in particular sites, as they do in Pahiatua, and now they've got the Poland and Christchurch. But I think for me the story and connection back to Pahiatua, especially when it's called Poland, was important. So I did get that feedback that they were very pleased to hear about that relationship. And I've just asked Councillor Franklin today if she'll put together some photographs from those 80th celebrations and of Little Poland, and actually we'll put that book or a presentation together to send to Cashmere Stolman, just wishing them a Merry Christmas, but talking about that because they do have the Pahiatua Park in Poland, and the story in Poland is so well known, and in New Zealand it's not quite there yet, but it is part of the school curriculum going forward, so I think that it's an important connection for us to take. And the Polish, when they do come through the Tararua district, a little bit like they were talking about they do go to Pukaha to see Parana or to learn about the park there, and then they sort of make that pilgrimage back. So we do benefit from having that strong relationship, but when you hear directly from those children, we get the chance to engage and meet with them. When they're in Pahiatua, some of them are in their 90s, but their memory goes back very much to the day they were arrived and a warm embrace in which they were greeted. And they'll talk to you, and I think, they talked about at the reunion, I think one of them said about having 5 blankets on the bed, and he couldn't believe that they were all for him. Yeah, so, yeah, very, very powerful, and a wonderful connection to get to know the different ones around the country and connect them back in. So well worth going, and I was a little bit worried because I flew from Hamilton for a family wedding, so Alison was my spear in case something went wrong.
No, it was actually amazing. It was a 93-year-old gentleman at the reunion here, and he told me his story, and he was 2 years old when he and his mother left Poland, not knowing where his father was, and when they got to Siberia, to Persia, his mother died in the snow, and he was orphaned. And when by the time he arrived here, he was 5. So that shows you how long that journey was. I mean, they had to make it right across the country to Mumbai to catch that boat to come to New Zealand. And the resilience and the love they've got for this community, but hearing their stories firsthand and their memories being as sharp as it were yesterday, it was just gut-wrenching. But also Maximilian, the consul who was at the reunion, came to Christchurch as well. Lovely man, and he sort of reiterated a lot of that as well. But the stories they just kept flowing, didn't they? And we did also talk with them at length about how they feel about what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, because that's one of their nearest neighbours, and they still have family in Poland, and their fear of Putin and it's just like reliving.
Still very real.
And one of the elderly gentlemen actually said to me, we just need to realise this led to World War III, and that just was mind-blowing.
I think one of the, in the culture speech at the end, which is very beautiful, one of the Polish children, his wife got up and spoke, and she said that her husband arrived in New Zealand as a broken child, and he was now an orthopaedic, a retired orthopaedic surgeon, and he spent his life healing other people. And I just thought that was really beautiful. So the Polish people certainly have gone on and given back to their country. It's good to be with them. Are there any other portfolio reports? Councillor?
Just a quick one, near Tracy. It's not quite my official portfolio, but I have been absent for a few weeks, and I was on a wine trail outside of Melbourne and got speaking to an Australian woman who was a retired nurse. She grew up in Eketahuna, Tararua College, and we had a long discussion around the cost of wastewater. So you don't know where you're going to have the opportunity to.
And very nice that she's so interested in the context.
Good on Eketahuna.
Councillor Sutherland.
Just very quickly, vegetation, not anything to do with portfolios, just very quickly, read the Bush Telegraph. They were publicly announcing the submissions. Just that's in general close at 10 o'clock this morning. So that was public submissions or staff, I'm guessing, but that's just nothing to stop.
Sorry, what was that, Kieran?
Submissions to the Bush Telegraph closed at 10 o'clock this morning. So nothing to stop and put it something, but that's what was advertised. And Leanne Ward had put that out too, across the paper and Facebook. But I'd have to be fairly glum about submissions. It's made at the very top level, isn't it? A 12 newspaper. So Councillor Steve made it like an hour from my other life. It's pretty important to us. We spend many dollars here, so we're strategising what we do already. So, but the other thing too, I just appreciated Councillor Scott sending us a bit of information from the sector meeting and reading that speech of the minister was really interesting. That last paragraph, and I have. Doesn't matter which way you read that.
No, I read it over and over again.
I think it was something. Just watch.
Yeah,
Be careful what you ask or watch the space, but it didn't make me feel very good. Yeah, part of the job, but the other reason that just to make Scott that. I didn't think it sounded like it was worthwhile in many respects. Councillor Steve had some information. So thanks.
Thank you, councillor Gilmore.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. I suppose a quick contribution to this council. So we did, Councillor Erina and I were lucky to be able to go to one sector in rural and provincial. Very interesting discussion and tone from Minister Brown, and I think a pretty clear warning shot with a number of things within that speech. That's why I was quite keen to get that out to other councillors. Slightly different tone from other ministers that attended, I must say. Shane Jones was there to speak and was a lot more warm, I would say. He still very clear on what they want to achieve. I mean, he, with a smile on his face, did say drill, baby drill a number of times. So at least you know where you stand with Minister Jones. There were a couple of people that were there from Australia, one from Victoria, one from New South Wales, talking about road capping, which is potential government policy and something that we have to be quite mindful of as a council, nationals, talking about bringing that in. So just some experiences and some drawbacks was talked about, and I think LGNZ will be doing a significant amount of work on that. We had a Treasury update, the economy is still pretty slow, probably a bit slower than is expected. We were lucky to have Karen McNulty speak. Mark Mitchell was very moving towards local government from an emergency management perspective, was very complimentary, particularly after Cyclone Gabrielle. So that was incredibly helpful as well. They launched the funding toolkit. Rural and provincial was mostly focused on local water done well. It is very clear that our council is in a relatively fortunate position of having people to work with. Not all councils across New Zealand are in the same position, and that dominated a little bit of that conversation. Some other rural councils wondering, will perhaps the government make people work with them? Do they have enough critical mass? Towns and cities, particularly South Island based, there's some real challenges there. And we had Mark Patterson talking about rural communities and rural issues. We wish him very proud of me, both with Minister Brown and Minister Patterson. Took everything I had, but I sat on my hands. I thought I may do more harm than good, so I kept my mouth shut. So there is hope for me.
Thank you, Councillor Gilmore. When I heard that if he was there in person, I thought the practice that we would be looking to see where I was. Thanks, Councillor Gilmore, for that report and for sharing that information, because I certainly read that as soon as I get some connectivity as well. Councillor Wallace?
Yes, I like your honesty. But I didn't sit on my hands, so this is just a quick one. Two things. One was congratulations on what Councillor Franklin's done down here. It was a sad thing that two parliamentarians could fly out from Poland, four, and none could come up from Wellington. So 42 million people live in Poland, and we got 5.5 million. So very bad for that point of view. And secondly, luckily we had our mayor there. So the other one was the zone meeting. We had some really good days there. The first day, I forget his new name, and I forgot his name. And he is now going to become the CEO of Transport New Zealand. Very bright, young, enthusiastic chap. And when I did get up and they asked the questions, I couldn't stop myself, because that morning Chris Bishop announced a bipartisan agreement going forward with infrastructure, 30 to 40 years. I asked the same question, can we not get something in the same realm with energy? because he was talking about self-sufficient, dependency and energy, which he said we could do it, but we're going to have to gas. We're going to do things. We're going to have this. And his choice of words were brilliant. We're going to have to talk with different people, and we're going to have to talk with different other people. In other words, they're talking with iwi and Greens, because the common goal, we're 5.5 million people, and we're shipping all this stuff down here. And we've got no growth. But the way this guy framed it and the way he did it, I think, hopefully, going forward, it's the reality of life. Unless we're all going to turn these lights off, we'll end up in the dark. So very good, wasn't it? I think, Mayor Tracy, would agree.
It was a fantastic presentation. So councillors, normally they did state that they would send the slides out. I have
Yes, he was straight shooter, this guy. He said, how could you imagine, they were banging on about the wages of the Prime Minister the other day. He said, really? He said, what has that got to do with the future of our country? So I just like the way the guy spoke and what we can do,
Did you, the comments from Andy Foster, Member of Parliament for New Zealand Youth?
Yeah, well, actually, my Councillor Long, the last speaker, she was the one that got us quite. Andy Foster was good. I didn't take. I've got some photos there. Yeah, he was good in what he spoke about, but nothing rang the bell. But the girl that sat down in your seat came in and basically told us what we were doing without, and that was my comment on that email.
No, that's good. Sorry, councillors, I exited early from Zone 3 after our presentation to come back for the direct debit. Thanks, Louis. Okay, Councillor Franklin, did you?
Oh, a little bit of good news, and it's not 100% confirmed, but it looks like we'll have the tower at Northbrook finished before Christmas. It has begun, but they're keeping that very quiet. The tower, LCG tower, and put it on into Little bit Northwood. Yeah, they're a little bit concerned at the moment. They want to get security up around it before they actually do an announcement. Good idea. Which is probably quite wise. Considering what happens in the smart tower. So but that's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Mayoral matters, probably I've covered that off with the road. We don't have, still waiting on the information for the late item papers, so. Everything uploaded? Yeah. We can do, we pull that up. Thank you, well done to the team for doing that.
What's it under? Which?
Just to get it up, saying.
Late item.
Your worship, once people have had a chance to read that, I'm very happy to move the recommendation.
And I'm very happy to see you.
We're very happy.
Yeah.
Oh, is this the parade?
Yeah.
Very happy to
Pretty
move
important.
it right now.
Yes.
Yeah, let's make it streamlined. What do we do?
People do a motion to rescind the others.
Let's get the plastic ones.
We'll go to Whitlam.
We did take it.
Save money.
To read the-
It's just the standard.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
So we voted on that, haven't we?
No, right, I've had a quick look, councillors, so the paper has been moved, the late item, which is a road closure requested. Christmas parade, and the recommendation there has been moved by councillor Gilmore. Seconder for that,
I'm gonna give it to you.
I take councillor John.
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Sure, we know that.
And thank you for your diligence.
Is that a physical one?
Okay, right, councillors, did I have somebody move that we move into excluded? Okay, I'll take councillor Wallace and councillor Brinker. Those in favour, please say aye. Okay, very right, so then future. What?